and supporting them as we honor Marjorie today. I'm John Jacobson with Gunderson Funeral Home, and I would like to introduce Fritz, Marjorie's grandson, who's going to be leading us today.
Language is a strange thing. My grandma was a loving, caring woman who lived simply through always being nice to everyone, being a wonderful wife and mother, doting on my sister Cheryl and I when we were visiting her in our youth, and then being an integral part of the family in her late years. At 104 years old, my grandmother was this amazing individual who, despite believing she lived an ordinary life, was extraordinary in her experiences and time in this world. While most extraordinary people are marked by their amazing deeds that far exceed the norm, she told stories that to her were mundane, but to anyone who listened were stories of times they'd only read about, a culture and world that they barely understood. She was born during a time when horse and carriage was still a common transportation. She lived through the Great Depression and 2 world wars. She was a farmer, seamstress, florist, gardener, and accountant. She was in England when the Germans bombed it from Zeppelins in World War I. She danced the latest dance craze, the Charleston, during the early 30s. She spent time in an air raid shelter during the Blitzkrieg in World War II. My grandmother was this fantastical woman that I didn't fully comprehend and appreciate until I reached adulthood. Grandma was this woman who reminded me of my poor manners and would nudge my elbows when I rested them on the dinner table. She had a kitchen that smelled of wooden cookies. She always had Pepperidge Farm hiding somewhere. Later, when she lived alone with her massive golden retriever, she was this nice little old lady who would sometimes be trapped on the couch for hours at a time because her dog thought it was nap time on her lap. She would curse under her breath, startling me with language that I wasn't expecting from the matronly saint that I thought that she was. And when she moved in with us, she was this delightful, funny old lady that enjoyed a glass of wine, a game of cards, even helped play bridge on her archaic computer, and still sometimes gave us a glare when our manners were less than adequate. My grandmother lived on 2 continents, visited Australia, and took a hot air balloon ride with my mom when she was in her 80s. She visited home in England in her 90s to visit her sister when she turned 100. She received a letter from the Queen of England when she herself turned 100 and danced on both sides of the millennium. Grandma, on the other hand, adamantly believed that when her older sister turned 100, she didn't have a chance at beating her. She danced with her future husband in 1937. She danced with me at my wedding in 2003, and with a family friend at age 100 in 2010. And shortly after, she bested her sister, which she found both thrilling and sad. Language is a very strange thing. The woman I knew as Grandma was this funny, yet tough old bird who found joy in being nice, liked mysteries of every kind as long as I knew her. She played cards, drank a bit of wine, loved to dance. The woman I think of as my grandmother is this extraordinary person whose life spans continents, wars, kings and queens, tragedies, new technologies, and wonders. Her father drove a horse and carriage. She was born during the time of silent movies. There were only 46 United States at the time she was born. The world changed around her, and through all the time that I had the distinction of being her favorite, and only, grandson, my sister being her favorite, and only, granddaughter, she adapted when she needed to, and still continued being the nicest person I have ever met. While my grandmother is worthy of remembrance, it is Grandma and her message that we should remember. If there is one thing that I can do, that we can do, to take her memory forward, it is to continue trying to be as nice as she was. My grandmother's niece, Susan Donald, is the only other member of the family who is absent today. She lives in England, and obviously that's quite the trip to make. My second mother, Sue Fritz, is going to kindly read some words that Susan Donald sent over to be read at this time.
Susan titled this Auntie Jeet. Growing up, I knew her as Auntie Jeet. I'm not sure how she got the name Jeet, but my parents called her that as well as calling her Margie. For a long time, I didn't really know what she looked like because she moved to America when I was very young. One day, when I was possibly about 10, I came home from school and found a lady and a little girl sitting in the dining room. My mom asked me if I knew who they were, and I said I didn't because I didn't want to appear foolish. But I had a sneaking suspicion they might be Auntie Jeet and Jane. In fact, I was right, but I couldn't believe it. Transatlantic travel being very unusual in those days. My Auntie Jeet was always very kind and sent lovely things for birthdays and Christmas. Wonderful petticoats full of frills, lace, and ribbons. Far too pretty to wear under a skirt, especially for a little girl growing up in drab post-war London. Later came a Revlon doll, a forerunner of the Barbie doll, and I still have it. Unheard of for dolls in the 50s, she wore a bra and panties, high heels, and had lots of clothes, some of which I think Auntie had made. I'm told that one year when Jane was taken to see Father Christmas, all Jane asked him for was a pair of glasses for my cousin Susie's doll. Apparently Father Christmas said, "Did you hear that, folks?" So impressed was he with Jane's selflessness. Auntie sent me a jigsaw puzzle of the United States, and I loved it. I learned the location of every state, even the smaller ones like Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire, though I never dreamed I'd ever be able to go there. About 20 years after the Hindleys moved to California, I went down memory lane with my parents to the area in Sussex where my grandparents, auntie, and uncle had lived. Stopping for lunch at a pub, we chatted to some of the locals. "Oh yes, I remember the people at the farm," said a man. "Mrs. Hindley was a very nice lady, and she had such lovely blue eyes." Over the years, Margie and Oliver were extremely generous to us, and we appreciated it greatly. They invited us to the States several times, and on one trip we had an amazing time being shown all around California. We were introduced to whiskey sours, which, because of the family connection, went on to become our drink for special occasions, and to the wonderful Mrs. C's candy as well. From my mom and her two sisters, Margie and Sis, I learned a song called "The Little Brown Owl." They had learned it in their youth, and it had become a sort of family song. Auntie Jeet and I sang it together one last time on my visit in June. She remembered all the words, and I will always treasure the sweet smile and expression she had on her face as she sang, as well as her picture of the little owl she gave me as a keepsake last year. She was a lovely aunt, and I will miss her.
and the little brown owl. On behalf of the family, thank you so much for coming. One of the amazing things about my grandmother is, as you can see by the number of people here, she lived an extraordinary amount of time. And because of that, she interacted with an amazing number of people. Everyone in this room has a story about her, or two, or 5, or 20. And so at this time, on behalf of the family, we would like to invite you to partake in some drinks, stand around, and please, please share your stories. I am constantly amazed at the new things I learn about my grandmother and all that she knew, all that she experienced, whether it be through her or through others. So at this time, thank you again so much, and please join us in